We are delighted to have you as a special guest on the show today, Elaine, because we wanted to time this episode for Women's History Month and therefore come to an industrial estate on the edge of Derby, not the most expected of places, but to look at this remarkable building and the story of two young, incredible female architects. So I wondered if you could just tell us why we're here, really.
Well, this is the major work by the architects Nora Aiton, whose father owned the pipeworks here, and Betty Scott. And it was a piece of design celebrating the innovative products and innovative manufacturing in Derby, as well as a classic example of parents providing an opportunity for young architects to get going.
But this would have been at the cutting edge of modernist design.
Completely at the cutting edge. It's the earliest office connected with a factory in Britain.
Wow.
In the modern style.
Wow. So let's go and have a look inside.
We should.
Elaine, you work for Historic England, and we were having this conversation whilst preparing for this film. You told me this fascinating fact that your colleague, when listing this building, said it was the first building he'd listed by a woman architect.
And he'd worked for Historic England for over 20 years at that time. So it shows how rare they were. But by the 1920s, there was a group of women coming through the Architectural Association in London who had accepted women only in the First World War because they were short of men students to pay the fees. But by the 20s, this new group of women students were taking all the prizes and starting to produce some really interesting buildings. There's Elizabeth Scott, no relation.
Not to be confused.
Not to be confused with our Betty Scott, who won the competition for the Shakespeare Memorial Theatre at Stratford-on-Avon. But Nora and Betty, more traditionally, were reliant on their parents providing their first jobs, which is how most architects start out.
And so with these two young women, how are they coming together? How do they meet?
They met as students. So Nora Aiton started studying maths at Cambridge and switched to architecture, which only has a 3-year course at Cambridge, so she had to go on to London to the Architectural Association to complete her course. And there she met Betty Scott, who had won several prizes for study and travel.
To talk about the incredible detailing of what's left of this building.
Well, this staircase survives really completely, but it's the minimalism of it that is so striking. And chrome alloys had really just come in the 1920s, so which is why you get so much of them in cinemas and modern buildings at the time. But that is minimal detailing. It is so incredible. There's no newel post or anything. It's just absolutely hanging in the air.
And you think they found this? You think they found this on their travels abroad, working through Europe, looking at detailing?
Exactly. And they were incredibly well travelled for two young girls. Nora had been across Europe with her parents. I suppose father looking at factories and industrial methods. She's looking at buildings. They'd been to the Paris exhibition of 1925, which gave us the Art Deco movement, effectively, and the Stockholm exhibition in 1930, which launched modernism across Scandinavia. So they'd seen this kind of detailing, but to bring it to Derby, and I suppose using Dad's products.
Yeah, you were also mentioning that in discussion earlier, that this is possibly his own wares.
He's doing pipe work, steel work, so, what better advert is there? The father was a staunch conservative.
Yes.
But was introducing workers' cooperation and involvement in the firm. So he was a very progressive man.
Oh, wow.
Given his political
Yeah,
views.
I've looked in the newspaper archives and seen he's a really staunch Tory, but he wants to empower his workers.
Yeah, yeah. So that boardroom was used for meetings. He had worker representation on the board, which I think is quite incredible for 1931.
Yeah, all very modern.
Where does this take them then? How does their story continue and finish, really?
Their story really finishes here. We don't really know what the practice did thereafter.
Really?
This was their standout building. Whether they thought they'd achieved what they wanted to do in architecture and they move on and have families, I really don't know. But Nora, certainly, her papers survive. She died about 1994, so, no, 89, but her archive was discovered by Lynn Walker in 1994.
Who we've got to give thanks to for these beautiful photographs, her fascinating article in the 20th Century Society. You've just mentioned this word radical, and you said this was a radical building. Just less than 10 miles away, back towards Nottingham, our hometown, is the Boots D10 building, which was built almost at the same time and is another truly radical building.
And truly radical and much better known.
Yeah.
Because it's for a big company. And though even growing up in Beeston, I had no idea that the interior
was as it is,
and that the building was as important.
Well,
as
Elaine,
it is.
I am privileged to say I think we should go and have a look at it together.
I think we're going to go and see it.